Opera music swelled louder and louder in the background as I walked past the rusted corpses of my former lives. It was in this moment I couldn't help but think Returnal had made me nocturnal. Bad joke aside, I honestly cannot stop playing this game. Perhaps can't isn't the right word, as it implies that I really want to stop playing. I don't want to stop playing Returnal, and at this point, trust me, I've put a hell of a lot of time into this highly addictive game. Every night, I'm staying up super late, and I'm only sleeping a few hours before I'm back up, blasting local fauna, picking up scout logs, deciphering glyphs, exploring alien ruins, and looking at every nook and cranny of this lush and wild world. Housemarque has totally sucked me into the world of their latest game. Now, there's been a lot of chatter if this roguelike or roguelite is really worth $70. And to be honest, this game probably isn't for everyone. But if you want to see if Returnal is right for you, then get ready, because in this spoiler-free review, we'll tackle the answer to those questions and break down what makes this game so freaking good. And one last little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Remember that we rate games on a pass, buy, or rent from Gamefly scale. And if you like what we're doing here at the Ginger Gamer Guy, hit that like or subscribe button. Without further ado, let's dive into the beautiful and crazy world of Returnal.
Crash. Again.
I guess the first question that we have to tackle in this review is, what is Returnal? Returnal is one of the very first AAA roguelikes to ever hit the market. A roguelike or roguelite are a couple of terms that have been getting tossed around in the gaming industry a lot in the last couple of years. And in case you're confused on what these games are, don't worry, you're not alone. A roguelike, L-I-K-E, is a genre of games akin to dungeon crawlers. They're hard games that carry strict punishments for dying. When you die in a roguelike, you lose all progress and progression. All your experience, it's gone. Any weapons or items that you gathered disappeared. The only thing that carries over from man to man is the player's knowledge. How to fight enemies, what the maps look like, and boss weaknesses. Basically, it's just as punishing as a Souls game, but without the second chance of running back and getting your XP. A roguelite, L-I-T-E, is similar, except that some progression carries over when you die. Returnal is a roguelite, meaning that every time you die, your progress is set almost to scratch. Level up weapons? Gone. Want your health upgrades to carry over? Don't even think about it. Your cash? Gone quicker than Dogecoin when Elon Musk is on Saturday Night Live.
I am not evil, I just misunderstood.
Everything goes when you die, except for a few permanent upgrades like melee attack. And dying is a big part of the gameplay and story of Returnal. You're Celine, an astronaut that within seconds of starting the game crash lands on an alien world. Scrambling from the debris of your ship, you stumble upon a dead body. Only this is no ordinary dead body. It's you. And you soon realize that you've been stuck in a loop. And every time that you die, you start back at the scene of the crash.
I won't give up.
And most of the game revolves around figuring out how you got stuck in this loop while piecing together the history of this unnerving world. And this planet has more mysteries than the Lost Island. There's crazy liquid spheres floating in the air. Your home from Earth magically appears in the middle of the jungle. And scattered throughout this planet are the remains of an ancient alien civilization. And Returnal uses the death and rebirth cycle that's normal to roguelikes to tell this story. Yes, there are some cutscenes and big moments, like the eerie house moments when the camera switches to first person. But one high point of storytelling in Returnal is that they use the death and rebirth cycle of roguelikes to weave in elements of the story. A lot of the story is told in bits and pieces as you randomly pick up logs off the corpses of your former lives that are spread across the world. And as Celine, you're trying to compile the story piece by piece, or should I say death by death. And while the story is confusing, unclear, and strange until you pick up all the pieces, and side note, even after you pick up all the pieces, it's still confusing, I still like to think this is where the story nails it. The randomness of the way the story was delivered really got me involved in Celine's plight, and I was just as invested and confused, and I wanted to figure out what was going on, not just for me, but for Celine, who was equally as confused.
She hears the music too. I'm starting to understand what destroyed her mind.
While the story kept me captivated, it doesn't really have a clear resolution. This is definitely a story that once it ends, you'll be scouring YouTube looking for explanation videos on what it all meant. Alright, let's talk gameplay. If you were to watch a gameplay clip of Returnal, you'd probably assume that this is a third-person shooter with some bullet hell elements. But Returnal's gameplay is so much more than that. If I could sum up Returnal's gameplay in one sentence, it would be risk versus reward. Returnal's gameplay hinges on systems, and learning how these interesting and complex game systems play with each other is a big part of the fun or frustration depending on your overall appetite for punishment. Let's look at parasites for example. Parasites are one of Returnal's most prevalent and complex systems. Attaching parasites grant you boons on one hand, but penalize you on the other hand. It's an interesting risk versus reward system that you have to manage carefully. And you'll make different choices depending on how you're building that character that run. Every room holds tiny choices that affect how you build your character. And it's like that with every system in Returnal, from weapons to health to money. Could you attach that parasite or multiple parasites that might restore a little health when your HP is critical, but at the cost of taking fall damage? Should you risk opening that chest now, which probably has a better gun than what you have equipped, or fight your way through a few rooms until you gain a few more weapon levels, meaning you can come back to the same chest later and it will drop an even more powerful gun? Should you collect all the health when you're uninjured, adding to your overall health bar, or save that health for when you're close to death? Should you bust open that cache of money so you can afford some stat upgrades, even though it has a high probability of causing a suit malfunction? Every single choice in Returnal has an impact on how you play and how you build your character for that run. And every choice has both good and bad consequences depending on your playstyle. Make the wrong choice, like run around with more parasites than you'd get at a cheap buffet, and your run won't last long. Another cool system is that you can upgrade your health by collecting health when you have full health. That's a lot of health. But basically, if you're at full health, when you go around the map collecting all the extra health, it goes to extending your overall health meter. Money, or the glowing orbs that come out of every enemy's orifice, can go towards purchasing stat upgrades, some artifacts that let you respawn, abilities, and more. As you advance through the game, you travel different biomes from thick jungles to Crimson Desert. Usually maps in both roguelites and roguelikes are procedurally generated, meaning that they are randomly put together. So when you die, the map will be different on your next run. And Returnal is no different. Although as you die over and over and over again, you will start to recognize different areas just shuffled in a random order. But I like this because it let me learn where the secrets were, making it easier to get through each level the more I played, explored, and died. In Returnal, exploration is the name of the game, and while there aren't massive open areas, it isn't that type of game. And the ever-shifting landscape does hold tons of secrets, meaning there's always something else to discover. And the level design is very Metroid-esque. You'll see certain parts of the level you can't get to until you progress further in the story and unlock those abilities. See a high ledge? You probably need to unlock the grappling hook. Well, let's be honest, it's a hook shot. See a glob of health at the bottom of a pond? Don't dive in, not until you unlock that ability. This Metroid-esque style of level design is brilliant for this game because as you progress and then die and then have to backtrack, there's always new areas to explore. And the high stakes and tension of having to reset upon death only adds to your need to explore. I found myself looking around every corner, looking for anything that would give me an advantage in the coming battles. Combat is the bread and butter of Returnal, and you'll fight a mixture of turrets to squids to giant disco balls that pump out more light than a Pink Floyd concert, and overall, it's great. There's something so satisfying watching the squid arms wiggle around in desperation like calamari gone wrong at a Japanese restaurant. Or a droid spin to Earth like a TIE fighter going down. And the combat puts a huge emphasis on moving fast and not getting hit. For every few enemies you beat without getting hit, your adrenaline level goes up to level 5. And each level adds bonuses like more money, more damage, and a stronger melee attack. However, if you get hit once, that level goes back down to 0 and you have to start again. To get the most out of Returnal, you have to be quick and skillful, which is easier said than done since most enemies shoot more neon balls than a bunch of hillbillies playing paintball for the last Miller Lite. Combat in Returnal is an exercise of dodging and aiming at the same time. You constantly have to be aware of your surroundings and have an escape plan, or you're gonna get surrounded. Overall, the combat is fast, fun, and frantic. Here, all the gameplay systems we talked about before shine, sometimes letting you even outsmart your enemy. For example, at this one point I was coming up on a tough boss. I had no respawn and only decent weapons, and only one health kit. But then I decided to pick up a parasite that would allow me to use any item twice. The only downside is that when it did, it would cause a malfunction, which is the last thing you want in a boss battle. Well, then I stumbled upon an item that automatically removes malfunctions. By combining these systems, it essentially let me enter the boss battle with 2 health kits and no negative effects. Being creative like this let me beat this boss on 1 try, while every other boss in the game to that point had taken me at least 2 to 3 tries to beat. The combat is fun and fast-paced, but more than anything, Returnal rewards skill, planning, and thinking outside the box. And it's helped by the cool weapons in this game. There's a variety of guns to choose from pistols to slime launchers to rifles to semi-automatic plasma weapons. And these weapons are another part where Returnal absolutely nails it. And there's types of guns I've never seen before. Returnal's combat puts an emphasis on skill and accuracy. You have crazy guns like the Dreadnought that have a set number of darts it shoots. After hitting something, these projectiles return to the gun, letting you fire them again. This means the more accurate you are, the faster you can fire, letting you demolish even the toughest enemies quickly. However, if you're not accurate, the darts fly far off in the distance, taking them longer to return to the gun and drastically slowing your rate of fire, leaving you open and vulnerable. Each weapon comes with a set of randomized traits that can be leveled up the more you use them. These unlocks can be simple unseen stat buffs, to adding huge upgrades like a massive laser beam that supports your fire, or ricochet shots that let you hide behind corners and bounce your bullets off the walls. These are permanent attributes that are unlocked with weapon proficiency that you get from beating up on enemies. The harder the enemy, the more you earn. Also, picking up items make your proficiency level go up. The higher the stat, the better gun drops you'll get from boxes and big baddies. Each gun has 2 modes of fire. There's a base fire and an alt fire that has a cooldown after each use. Here, Returnal makes use of the DualSense's adaptive triggers in a unique and cool way. To aim over your shoulder, pull down on the L2 trigger halfway until you meet resistance. But if you want to change to your alt fire, push past that resistance and hold the trigger all the way down. This is a control scheme that's never been used into the power of the PS5 DualSense controller, and it's an insanely clever use that I would have never thought of. I'm not gonna lie, it took a few runs to get used to this controller layout, but once I did, I was completely sold, and now I think that every third and first person shooter on the PS5 should do something similar. It just works that well. Speaking of the alt fires, these range from homing missiles to laser beams to one I just call the Palpatine. Here, the haptics and adaptive triggers work their magic again. By far, Returnal is the best game to make use of the DualSense's haptic feedback. You can feel each and every tiny vibration in everything, from the direction your controller vibrates as your ship flies across the screen, from the way it vibrates out when you pull off a superhero landing. Seriously, the haptics in this game are insane and are a use case for what this controller can do. The haptics are so good that it is definitely something to consider when deciding whether or not to pay $70 for this game. Returnal's music and sound are also excellent. The music is evolving and all-encompassing and epic as you struggle from room to room, battle to battle, trying to stay alive, keep your adrenaline meter as high as possible, and grow your health meter. There's always tension in this game, and the music reflects that. The sound design is also a masterpiece, from the echo of bullets to the distorted malfunctions of your suit to the staticky sounds of lava. But why do I need to explain it when I can let you listen for yourself? Alright, that brings us to the end. So should you pass, buy, or get from GameFly? For me, this game is up my alley, so this is a strong buy. I love these type of punishing games. I love roguelikes. I love doing the loops and trying different builds. They just speak to me. If you're the same, then you should totally buy this game. And the story, characters, and haptics make this worth $70 to me. Honestly, you can beat Resident Evil 8 in 3 hours and nobody's talking about if it's worth $60. If you're unsure if you'll like a roguelike, then it's best to GameFly this game and check it out. The haptic feedback alone is worth renting this game. Personally, I don't think anybody should pass on this game. You should at least give it a try if you can. If you don't think it's for you, don't buy it. Wait for it to be a free game on PSN in the next year probably, or GameFly it or get it on sale. But if you ever see this game on sale and you're curious about it, totally pick it up. And that's our review. What do you think about Returnal? And before you go, remember to hit all the buttons that YouTube likes, not the bad buttons, but the good buttons, and stick around and like and subscribe for more reviews like this. And until next time, game on, gamers.